So when she was coming to you wanting to show you affection and you pushed her, that was her being aggressive?
No, I don't recall. I don't recall that. I would ever push someone if they were showing me affection.
Well, you said she was drunk and you wanted her to get out of your face. So instead of saying, leave me alone, you pushed her and she fell. You also bit her.
Yeah, I don't. I think that when I explained that to the officer, the parole officer, and that when I first talked to her for the interview, that was that was not what I meant to say. What I meant to say was we were like yelling at each other, and I forced my head forward to try and get her out of my face, and I had butted her, and I was wrong for doing that.
Wait, at first, I thought you had a hat on, and the brim of your hat touched her face that broke her nose.
Yeah, that was the head of the brim of my hat hit her in the nose.
What kind of hat was that? A rock hat? A cement hat? I don't understand.
No, it was just a flat brimmed hat. Yeah, I went like that, and it hit her in the nose, and I felt more. So
a hat is not going to break somebody's nose. You had to want to hurt her.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. The way that he answers that question so seriously without even skipping a beat, saying, no, it was just a regular hat with the brim on it. It was just, these Connecticut hearings, they drive me nuts, but you got to give it to, I believe it's Miss Page, the way that she says things sometimes. Anyways, we're going to jump into a parole hearing with the man with an underlying offense of violating a protective order. So, yep, it's another one of these. His maximum release date is 8/19/2025, and he was sentenced November 6th, 2023. So he's got a little bit riding on this. Let's jump in and I'll unpack it.
Jordan Cologne, 440-272.
This hearing is being conducted in consideration of the application or of the parole application for Jordan Cologne, inmate number 440272. He is serving a sentence of 7 years jail, 30 months to serve, followed by 3 years of probation for 2 counts of violation of a protective order, assault third, criminal mischief second, and violation of probation with the underlying offense of illegal operation of a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol. As of today, records reflect a parole eligibility date of May 20th, 2024. There is victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows the offender has completed the domestic violence program, tier 2, the DUI program, and will complete the C-Car recovery coach program on July 9th, 2024. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score falls within the moderate risk range of risk for recidivism. Mr. Cole, this is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin.
May I read the letter, or do you want me just to say why?
You can read your letter.
Okay. All right, thank you. First, I want to say that I recognize the seriousness of my offenses, and I wanted to say how sorry I am. I take full accountability for what I've done. There's no excuse for the way I abused alcohol, and during my time incarcerated, I've learned how much drinking has made my life unmanageable and caused so many problems by the age of 25. I truly apologize to all the people I've impacted, especially the victim. No one deserves to go through that. I didn't realize how selfish I had become as a result of my impaired judgment. I now see that addiction is a selfish disease, and I have no desire to continue down this destructive road. Since I've been incarcerated, I've learned what emotional dysregulation is and realized I tend to act out of emotion. I wish I could have reached out for help earlier in life to work out my childhood trauma, because this has been a huge issue I haven't healed from. I know if I was mentally healthy and focused on my weak points, things would have never spiraled out of control. Try not to dwell on the past anymore because I'm trying to grow wiser instead. When I arrived to Carl Robinson Correctional Institute 7 months ago, about 2 weeks from being freshly sentenced for the first time in my life, I was beside myself and wasn't sure how I was going to make it. And I was broken and tired of my circumstances. I knew I needed to make use of my time and learn how to become a better version of myself. That's why I signed up for every program available. I needed help. I began by holding myself accountable. Coming to prison and being stripped from nearly everything has caused me to surrender my life to a higher power, which gives me faith today to turn things around for the better. I've taken the time here seriously and now have clarity in my life. Since my incarceration, I've participated in various programs aimed at personal growth and rehabilitation. These programs include NA speaker meetings, anger management, domestic violence, Tier 2, DUI, smart recovery, CCAR, aftercare, vocational manufacturing, as Nantucket Community College and TCM to have a case manager for recovery resources. These 11 programs have provided me with valuable tools and helped me develop the skills to become a better man and reintegrate into society. While I acknowledge the challenges that await me, I'm committed to face them head on. As long as I continue to practice what I've learned and rely on the tools I've been given, I will secure a good future for myself. Through attending AA, having a sponsor, and working within the CCAR community upon release, I have a much higher chance of a long-term success than I would otherwise, in efforts to staying sober and living a healthier life. I also plan to continue my education and get a welding certification under my belt through the Eastern Pipeline program held at Three Rivers College. For employment, I would be continuing to service boats part-time as I did in the past. That's my plan. As much as I wish I could rewind time and take things back that I did that hurt others, I know I can't. The only person who deserved to suffer as a result of my action is none other than myself. Unfortunately, the family belonging to the victim also partook in suffering and they never deserved it. All I can do moving forward to right my wrongs is work on myself and positively impact others around me. With your permission, this process can begin sooner rather than later if you see me as being worthy of release. Respectfully, Mr. Plum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Colon. We always appreciate when you all come to these hearings prepared. You wrote down your thoughts so that you can convey that to the board. And we appreciate that. So what will happen is each of us will take an opportunity to ask you questions. When we're done with our questions, we'll deliberate and when we're done with our questions, I'll turn the hearing over to our victim's advocate, Mr. Jesus, for input from the victim. And then we will deliberate and give you our decision. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Best of luck to you, sir. And I will start with the questions. So there are a few things that you mentioned in your opening statement. I was happy to hear you express remorse and accept accountability for your actions. I understood that you struggled with sobriety and alcohol was your vice. And when you were under the influence, you really were, your inhibitions were lowered and you really spiraled out of control. After having completed the domestic violence program, I'm interested in knowing if you're able to identify the harm that your actions or the impact that your actions had on your victim.
I feel that it's very traumatizing to be involved in something like that, being verbally abused and, obviously physically abused. It's hard for anyone. It could be traumatizing. And, I feel terrible for my actions. It was definitely a toxic relationship. And I wasn't strong enough to, remove myself from that position and get healthier with my life because I needed help. I needed to work on myself individually. And I felt that we needed, if we were going to continue to work things out, we needed a balanced relationship. And it was just not in the books at that time. So, I feel horrible for my actions. And I know that for her that, it was hard for her. So.
I asked that, I began with that question because you repeatedly said that the victim was the aggressor in these offenses.
Yeah, there was a lot of time. There was a lot of times between both of us. We had, physically, touched each other, like put our hands on each other. So through alcohol, there was times, but I hold myself accountable. You don't ever put your hands on a woman either way.
So when she was coming to you, wanting to show you affection, and you pushed her, that was her being aggressive?
No, I don't recall that, I would ever push someone if they were showing me affection.
Well, you said she was drunk and you wanted her to get out of your face. So instead of saying, leave me alone, you pushed her and she fell. You also bit her.
Yeah, I think that when I explained that to the officer, the parole officer, and that when I first talked to her for the interview, that was not what I meant to say. What I meant to say was we were like yelling at each other, and I forced my head forward to try and get her out of my face, and I had butted her, and I was wrong for doing that.
Wait,
So,
at first, I thought you had a hat on and the brim of your hat touched her
Yeah.
face that broke her nose.
yeah, that was the head of the brim of my hat hit her in the
What
nose.
kind of hat was that? A rock hat? A cement hat? I don't understand.
No, it was just a flat brimmed hat. Yeah, I went like that, and it hit her in the nose, and I
Sure.
felt more. So
A hat is not going to break somebody's nose. You had to want to harm to hurt her.
mhm. I don't know.
I'm not understanding. And as a man, if you really should understand that you're stronger than the woman, first of all. And secondly, you know that you need to walk away.
No,
I
exactly.
understand toxicity. I do. However,
Mhm. I understand that.
and I mean, you guys took this to a whole nother level. I mean, you were staying at a hotel and the front desk was sick of hearing you two fighting and yelling. So they called the police. Like,
Yes.
how could you not know that you needed to be out of that relationship?
I don't know. It's such a trauma bonded relationship, and we were codependent. Felt like we couldn't live without each other, and that was the problem itself. I needed to avoid the whole situation and work myself individually.
Yeah.
And this is where I am today. I'm in here now, and I've been working on myself, and it gives me a lot of more of a foundation to become a better man. So something had to give, and it's unfortunate that this was the place that made me change my time. Change my life around for the better.
According to the reports that we reviewed, this was not your isolated incidents, that this was the nature of your relationship, and her family really did not approve of the relationship. And because of that, it's almost like you isolated her so that you could really, the two of you could really continue this mess of a relationship, I'll call it. But so you said that your victim experienced trauma. Do you think what else do you think she experienced?
Just a lot of manipulation and stuff like that. I mean, when I was actively using alcohol, I was really codependent on her. I wasn't really
I want you to stop talking about yourself. We're talking about the victim, please.
Okay.
What do you think the impact of your actions had on the victim? Not on Mr. Cologne, but on the victim.
I mean, she was obviously traumatized. She definitely has to go through, ways of healing. Impact financially, been impacted financially because I wasn't providing, doing my part in things. And
So what about her trust for men in the future? That this has probably changed her outlook on her relationships, and that it's going to take a lot more work for her to trust them. She also experienced fear. Sometimes people are afraid to leave because if they leave, they might really be hurt. So, there's a bunch of things that this victim will forever have to live with and seek help for. So I understand that you've had the opportunity to work on yourself, but please don't minimize what the impact that your actions have had on her. I mean, she lost her family, I mean, and the list goes on and on. So explain to me, you said when you were interviewed by the officer that you were able now to identify life stressors and you learned ways to combat those. What are some of those ways?
Seeking help for life stressors, talking to somebody about what I'm going through instead of, keeping everything bottled up, looking for different ways of coping, obviously healthy coping skills, which I've learned a lot of those things, in here.
What are some healthy coping skills?
Taking deep breath, talking to people, taking a step back and rethinking things before taking action. Just really, those are the things that I find myself most successfully doing, is talking to someone, taking a deep breath, and really just analyzing the situation before taking action.
Okay. And so, I'm happy that you've gained those tools, and I'm hoping that you'll be able to carry those on over into your next relationship. But as you said, you still are working on yourself, and you still have some things underlying that you need to address. And I'm glad that you understand that alcohol is like kind of like the fuel to the fire. So it's really important that you focus on your sobriety. I read that your release plan includes your getting a Vivitrol shot, and connecting with CCAR. You wanted to get a sponsor and go to AA, which are all positive things. I also read that religion plays a huge role as well. My question to you about your substance abuse is that you've had a number of treatments out in the community, and some of them you've completed successfully. So what's different this time opposed to the last time?
I mean, sitting in jail for the past year has really, really made me realize, like, the alcohol is completely not something that I want to continue doing, going down that road. Crashing 2 cars in 2 years, getting a DUI, getting domestic charges. My life was completely unmanageable. And I had to hit rock bottom to realize that, this is not something I want to continue. At 25 years old, I should be focusing on being financially stable, getting my life together, and, redirecting, my life and what is my priorities and stuff like that. And I feel like I was going down such a downhill spiral that it was only this that could have stopped that, other than, being dead, honestly, because at that time I kept trying and nothing worked. So I had to surrender my life. And this was something that I took honestly as a positive thing instead of negative. In the beginning, when I first got incarcerated, I was trying to hold on to things that I couldn't control. Once I started realizing that I was the issue and that I needed to work on me and do the right things for myself, things started opening up for the better. So I feel very confident that as long as I stay around a positive support system moving forward with recovery, with my aunt, my family, and just be authentic. When I need help, I have a really good relapse prevention plan. I have TCM. He's a case manager for recovery support. So I have a lot of people on my side, and I'm just trying to do the best as I can. I really do have faith in myself, this time around. And I'm not scared to ask for help, which is something that I was scared before to do.
Well, that's a good thing. So I appreciate that, and just reviewing your file, I'm like, they tried over and over again to give you chances to get the help that you needed out in the community way before incarceration, and you just couldn't get it together. And it took them placing you in prison to stop this behavior. I mean, it just makes no sense. And you talk about all this change, and yet you just received 2 disciplinary infractions, one in April and one in June, for not complying with the facility rules. Explain to us what was going on. Oh gosh. Hello?
Robinson cut out for a moment.
Sorry. Yeah, I cut out. I think you mentioned the tickets, the 2 tickets that I have gotten in the past 4 months.
Yep, I did.
Okay, so I take responsibility for, my part in things. For the Class A ticket, I'd like to, explain what happened. What happened, there was a verbal altercation with one of the inmates about blowing out the outlets, and I stated, it's common courtesy to talk to brass and have the outlets, pop back on. It's not my responsibility to have, my extension cord and provide the whole front row of the dorm electricity. He got all into the jail politics and explained, we stick together, you're no better than us.
Wait a second, wait, what ticket are we talking about?
The Class A contraband.
The tobacco?
Yeah, the Class A contraband, yeah.
Can we get to the good part?
Yeah, well, so long story short, a detail worker, he's a detail worker, and he planted tobacco on my bunk. I tried to fight the ticket, and I tried to do whatever I could, but
unfortunately, whatever's on my bunk, I'm held accountable for. So I had to take the rap, which I held myself accountable for because it's on my
Okay.
bunk. Even if I'm
Okay.
outside the unit, that's what.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, and what about the being out of place?
The Class B, I went down to Addiction Services to actually read my letter to Miss Rogers. I needed to use the bathroom really bad. I'm lactose intolerant. Went over to the property officer right into A&D, and I asked him, I said, may I use the restroom? He said, no problem. I used the restroom, explained where I was coming from, went to the restroom, went back to my dorm, and the day later, I got written up for using the bathroom out of place because the processing officer didn't agree upon. So it was a misunderstanding, which, mistakes happen. So I wouldn't have, I asked permission. I wouldn't have gone to the bathroom. If the officer said, hey, don't use the bathroom, I wouldn't have used the bathroom. So
I don't think that that's the point. I think the point was that you weren't supposed to be down there and no one
Yeah.
knew that you were what you were down there for. So I didn't read anywhere where you said you were going to read your letter to the addiction service persons. That's news to me. So, what's this? I mean, the fact that you're still making, poor decisions is concerning. But I do appreciate your speaking with me, Mr. Cologne. I'm going to give my colleagues an opportunity to talk to you. Ms.
Okay.
Turner?
So, Mr. Cologne, what we're trying to do today is make a decision about whether it's appropriate for you to finish the 2.5 years of 7 that you have to serve out in the community. And we have to make that decision in light of the interest of public safety.
Mhm.
So we have somebody who's on probation, was willing to drive under the influence and risk harming others,
Mhm.
and then engaging in assaultive acts in violation of a criminal protective order.
Yeah.
So you see what we're looking at.
Yeah.
So why were you unwilling to abide by the court's order to not have any contact?
Like I said, at the time, we were in such a trauma bonded relationship and codependent that I felt like, it was
It
worth.
was a 1-year relationship. Let's just put that out there. This is like a 1-year relationship. Okay.
I understand. And I just felt like, we could work things out. She wanted to work things out, but I knew that if I were to get caught with her, I would end up in this position. So obviously it wasn't worth it, but it took me this time to realize, it's not worth continuing that relationship,
So
especially
you're
after.
on probation, you're using drugs, you're skipping treatment. The court tells you to stay away from the victim. You didn't give a damn. You repeatedly violated that protective order. And here we are.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you've developed some coping skills. I read, tell me if this is accurate, that when you're sober, you're emotionally abusive, and when you're intoxicated, you're physically abusive. Is that the picture?
I would say so. I would say I need a lot of, therapy and help from my trauma. So
Who is Mr. Gagnon to you?
Mr. Gagnon was just a friend. He was a friend that I used to go to the beach. I used to go up to Mr. Gagnon's house and visit him and stuff like that.
Okay, we're talking about George, not his dad.
No, I don't know his dad.
Okay, but you talked about beating George down, and it would be like beating down his father. What did that mean?
I have no idea. I've never met his dad. And the only thing that we just had a verbal altercation there with another guy.
Well,
And there was some property damage
Something
that was
happened
done.
beforehand, Mr. Cologne, because George made it clear to Tyler he didn't want you coming to his house, and you showed up anyway, and then you refused to leave. So now you have a standing criminal protective order against you protecting Mr. Gagnon. So tell me what you understand that means, because obviously you don't have much of a track record abiding by the court's orders.
That means not to contact him and stay away from him. So
No
completely.
reaching out through social
Yeah.
media, no contacting him through third persons.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And, my aunt has my phone, and I guess he's reached out on social media to send like some scripture or something like that. I don't know if that was like
you know, trying to get me wrapped up or anything like that. But I'm not worried about ever contacting him again. That's
Okay,
done and over.
Well, don't respond because you could end up back where you are right now. So it was interesting to read when you were interviewed and in the police report, the 2 times before you got caught for the DUI, you crashed. Was it single vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, so were you injured in either of those crashes?
No, I wasn't injured. No,
Whose cars were they?
they were my cars.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's why you kept doing what you were doing because there weren't any consequences.
Yes. And I guess I just couldn't get it right at that time. You know, being out there, obviously I couldn't get it right and it just wasn't working for me. So,
Or it was, because you were doing exactly what you wanted to do. And just 3 months into your probation is when you got arrested for the domestic. So like you never even had a chance to put the wheels on the car.
mhm.
Yeah.
Everything was spiraling out of control due to my addiction.
So the court wanted you to take anger management, and you did an 8-hour course through J. Hall Associates. What was that? A correspondence type thing?
Yeah, she was a mitigation specialist for the case, but she sent that early on before sentencing so I could get a grip on, you know, what those things are and stuff like that. So I sent that back to her on completion, and she sent me a certification. So
what did you do? It was on paper? It was on computer?
yeah, it was a packet. It was on paper, so you had to fill it out like old school way, and then I sent it back to her upon completion. I signed up here to do it, but they wouldn't let me. You know, they weren't getting me in. So
Okay. Well, I'm not sure that 8 hours worth of paperwork is really going to get at,
yes,
what your issues are. I know that you have identified childhood trauma, but at some point, I think you really need to address the anger. You did talk about learning emotional self-regulation, so that's a start. But your orientation of aggression towards other people is concerning, sir.
mhm.
So, you want to go to your grandmother's, and what is your employment plan?
My employment plan is to work part-time while getting a certification for the Eastern Pipeline program for welding. I've already spoken to them and got approved for all that stuff. Working part-time at a marina, because that's what I do. I service boat engines and stuff like that. So that would be that employment. And then I would try to, further my education with the Eastern Pipeline program.
How seasonal is the marina work?
Pardon me?
Seasonal is the marina work.
Sometimes it's seasonal depending on the marina, but also I can work for myself and stuff like that. But usually it's all year round. There's a lot of all year round marinas in the shoreline where I'm from. So
Well, it's where I'm from too, and all I see is they get shrink wrapped. So I'm not really
Yeah.
sure what you're working
but
on
there's
in the
always
winter
indoor
months.
there's always indoor storage and stuff like that, repairs on boats, bottom painting, all that type of stuff. So
All right, Madam Chair, I don't have any more questions for Mr. Colon at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Ms. Palmieri?
I just wanted to ask, there was a letter in support of your parole today from your aunt. She
Yes.
lives in California.
yes.
Do you speak with her often? What is your?
I speak to her every day, and that was another one of my plans moving forward, was just to stay on a straight and narrow upon release here in Connecticut, and then get things moved out there, because I feel that my life will be a lot better having structured out with my aunt and doing things like that. But I'd obviously have to show a good track record here, stay around my recovery, and then that was my plan 6 months down the line if you guys accepted that moving forward. So that's the big scheme of things.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Mary. We're going to turn the hearing over to our victim's advocate. You may listen, Mr. Cologne, but please do not interrupt. Good morning, Mr. Jesus.
Good morning, board members. I do have a brief statement, and it reads as follows, quote, "I don't want any future contact with him," end quote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jesus.
You're welcome.
All right. Give us a few minutes to talk about your case, sir, and we will give you our decision. So I really did come in with a question mark on Mr. Cologne. I'm happy that he was able to participate in a number of positive programs. And I'm also happy that he really has given some thought to his relapse prevention. Sounds like he has some support out in the community. What bothers me is that the court, they really did try to work with him prior to this incarceration, and he continued. I see 4 violations of protective order, driving with a suspended license, assault thirds, breach of peace, just repeated, violation of conditions of release, disorderly conduct, criminal mischief. Like, I mean, I don't think that I've seen anyone receive so many chances to kind of get himself together and really mess up just as soon as he is released from the court. Like, I mean, a 1-year probation term in comparison to the people that we see here, like the last guy had 20 years of probation. That's 1 year, and you could only last 3 months out there before getting a new conviction. I don't know. So the tickets don't add to my concerns, and I don't know. Ms. Turner, what are your thoughts?
So we're looking at about 11 months difference between today and his end of sentence, which is, early June of next year. And, the reason that I would be inclined to grant him is because of the higher level of accountability of parole. Like, he's not going to be able to remain in the community under parole supervision if he starts back to some of these ways. And I think that greater oversight parole can provide, as well as support, is important because he's got a really questionable track record with managing himself out in society, in light of the addiction that he's dealing with. So this could be the right step off to successfully navigating a life in recovery.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Ms. Palmieri?
I agree with everything that Ms. Turner had to say, and all the facts that you pointed out in terms about his supervision community. He had an opportunity to do a lot of substance abuse programs to help him. One thing that I do take into consideration is, he did not have a good support system in terms of his youth. The letter from his aunt, I think, was pretty plain. She seems to know what she's talking about. She has good background, and is able to kind of break down how she saw him growing up and going through this whole process, and how she would like to see him, moving forward and assessing what he's already done. I do think that he is 25 years old, should now be in a position where, after spending all this time in jail, be able to assess where his priorities are in terms of his personal freedoms.
Okay.
So I would also be in favor of granting his discretionary parole.
Okay.
He has done a lot of good programs.
He
He
has.
sticks to his plan. He can be successful.
Okay, what conditions? I have no alcohol, no co-defendant Tyler Bedingfield, domestic violence, no victim, and no JG, no driving. Anything else?
Yeah, I have mental health evaluation and treatment.
Okay.
No contact. So an additional victim is Robert Roche
Okay.
and George that we mentioned earlier, Gagnon. And what were the initials you had for the victim?
MJ.
Yeah.
And GG was the other guy. Yeah. And let's just say RR. Well, those are the general no contacts, right?
No, they're victims.
Well, GG.
Is a victim that has a protective order.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. Anything else? Thank you. With regard to Jordan Cologne 440272, I move that he be granted parole on or after today's date, July 8th, 2024, with the following conditions. In addition to standard parole conditions, you are to consume no alcoholic beverages, you are not to operate a motor vehicle without the parole officer's permission, you are to have no contact with your co-defendant, Tyler Bedingfield, you are to have no contact with your victim, initials MJ, DG, or RR. You'll participate in domestic violence in the community, and you'll also participate in a mental health evaluation and receive treatment as deemed necessary. Is there a second? All in favor? Did I say all the conditions, ladies? Thank you very much. All right, so Mr. Cologne, you'll receive all of this in writing. Best of luck to you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
All
right.
Can you even imagine that they granted? I mean, it's like a trend with Connecticut. They do a great job, like just piling it on, and you can almost feel bad for him. And I mean, I don't, but it's, as the saying goes, you can almost feel bad for him. And they're just going at him left and right, and it's like it was like he was KO'd 5 times over and over, and then they sum it up. They sum it up with, well, we really want him out there with supervision, so let's have him take an online DV course program, and he'll be okay. And it's like, what? I mean, what did we just watch? The guy had 2 write-ups in the past 4 months. In Louisiana, you wouldn't even be allowed to have a parole hearing if you had a write-up within 12 months of your parole date. It's, without having the background of Louisiana, which really is, who would have thought I'd be saying this, at the beginning, but until, knowledge is power, until you actually see the different states and how they run their parole hearings, it makes you realize just how broken these systems are. This guy has clearly learned nothing. He's dangerous. He's not taking accountability for anything. He, on his parole hearing, still claimed that his hat broke her nose. His hat. It's like watching a child. 2 write-ups. Who's benefiting? It doesn't benefit him. We're going to see him. I'm willing to bet we're going to see him at a parole revocation hearing, which we cover those. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see him come back. The victim calls up and she just says, I just don't want to see him again. And by God, I mean, he's violated that restraining order how many times? Was it 4? The protective order? How many DUIs does he have? This guy's dangerous. He broke her nose, for God's sake. From what they were coming down, he isolated her. He did everything. He's a dangerous man who takes no accountability. And they grant? Why? sometimes you gotta just punish. Sometimes you do have to keep someone locked up. You gotta send the message, not just to him, but to his fellow inmates, to everybody else. This is to the system. Sometimes you can't just always fall back on, well, he needs supervision out there, so we'll release him early. Doesn't make sense. But hey, what do we have? We don't have PhDs, We're just sheeple. I mean, his maximum release, it was 8/19, 2025, and I would have said, yeah, make him serve another year. Let him learn a lesson. Send him to another program. I mean, let's see what, thank you, Richard, for providing what info. Richard, he provides every little link of arrest, right? And then puts it into this list. And normally, if there's a news article, I'd share it, but it's just really just like little links, But still, he does it. I don't know how he does it. I'm telling you, every line item in the spreadsheet has 5, 6, 7, 8 URLs. And this was just his arrest after arrest after arrest. Why can't these things, these screen sharing stuff, they don't make it easy for you. So we have 5/22/2021, which is illegal operating under motor vehicles. It got DUI. So they give him a slap on the wrist. They give him a 6-month sentence, but they suspend it. Probation a year. Then we have 7/11/2022. Criminal mischief, 2nd degree, 364 days in jail. I wonder how much he served of that. We have arrested on 8/30/2022. Couldn't have been he served anything or he got it on bail because it's just a month later. He's getting violation of a protective order, 7-year jail sentence, execution suspended after 30 months. That's what this is. But then he has arrested on 5/3/2023. So I guess this is when he violated that probation. I guess they put him on probation, right? Yeah. Like they were saying, hey, he can't help himself. What's it gonna? So if we see him again, which I imagine we will, we'll just play it here. And thank you, Richard, for providing all the info. Help us reach 100,000 subscribers by subscribing. And with that, I'll let you go.